Hey everyone, I'm Jay.
And I'm Scott, and welcome to Witches Betwixt.
Today we're going to be talking about Midsummer. It's our summer solstice kind of special here. It's a tradition that I kind of want to keep up with all the different Sabbats, at least that me and Scott tend to personally recognize in our practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so with Midsummer, uh, so many different practices happen at the summer solstice, and yet all of them kind of all boil down to a couple of similar concepts. So, if you are new to this path, if you are a baby witch, um, basically, the summer solstice is the longest day of the year and the shortest night. Um, Traditionally, it's celebrated around, I would say, it's like a window of time. So, like the 20th to the 22nd, I think that's like a fair window of time to say when it's usually celebrated. Um, some people will celebrate on the full moon closest to the solstice, or they'll have their ritual exactly at the time, um, like exactly at the time of what it's like the longest, where the where the day transitions into night. Then they'll have their ritual, or they'll have it at like noon. So basically, it's a fire festival, and it really it's celebrating that those high hot days of summer, and just being grateful for the bounty of the land and growing things and stuff like that. So generally, it's a very festive Sabbath. It's not particularly it's not like Samhain can be a little solemn at times, as well as like Mabon or Yule. They can be a little solemn, but
Mm-hmm.
Midsummer, in my experience, has always been a big party, and that's kind of what I've always really enjoyed about it. Even though I never really liked summer in general, and
Me either.
yeah, and like we've talked about it before, like how like as it gets hotter, it feels like like our energy and like our power just kind of wanes because we're not like really warm weather type people.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of been feeling the opposite with this solstice coming up. It's kind of weird. Like I've been enjoying sitting outside, even though it's been hot as hell here already.
I. It's funny. I apologize. It is summer in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
Um.
exactly.
uh. Uh. I've actually. I must agree there because I've actually. I mean, I don't ever. I will. I don't think I'll ever feel as empowered or as witchy or magical as I do. Like, let's say, like more towards Lunasa and Mabon. But I will say that so far, I've maintained a sense of connection that I normally kind of lose around this time.
Hmm.
Um, a part of me wonders if that's because I recently started connecting deeply with green magic. I have this really lush, quickly growing garden now, and I've made some promises to some spirits that I work with, and I'm keeping foxgloves, um, and that's going really nice. Uh, so I don't really know, but I am having this really powerful, I mean, more so than normal connection to the summer tides.
Yeah, me too. Like I've really been enjoying like cutting my grass doesn't feel like as much of a chore. Like I'm kind of just enjoying being outside and like
Hmm.
putting in that kind of work. I also started a little garden. I decided to go the vegetable route. So we got some green beans and I got cherry tomatoes and a bell pepper plant.
Awesome. I have a
Yeah,
question, and please
yeah.
leave this in. How are your tomatoes doing?
They're doing really well.
Oh, are they actually like? Are you getting tomatoes?
Yeah.
Uh,
Really? Yours are
my
doing good?
tomatoes just growing, and it's not doing anything. It's just
Oh.
growing,
I
and
mean,
nothing's actually happening.
I was learning that with tomato plants, they get really tall. So you have to like prop them up.
Yeah, we have that. Yep.
Yeah, I don't
And
know.
it is super tall.
Does it get like sun all day?
Yeah, it gets full sun and tons of water. and it keeps growing, but it won't give me any yield.
That's really strange. Maybe you got
I
a
know.
bum plant.
I mean, I'm wondering if it's because I got a beefsteak tomato plant. I don't, because they're big and
Oh,
ridiculously big
maybe they
tomatoes.
take longer to. 'Cause I just got cherry tomatoes, so they're smaller.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just because, like, they're like they're genetic modified
Yeah,
brand of tomato.
they're
So
hardy
maybe they just take
tomatoes.
longer. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I honestly I virtually knew nothing about growing plants. I know you put the thing in the dirt and then water it and make sure it has sun and then you get plant.
Oh
Um,
my God, yeah, there's so much to it though.
yeah, but I just decided to keep it simple. Like I got like a nice organic like bedding to put it in. It's actually been really nice, and I go out there every day and I water them and I talk to them a little bit.
Yep.
Um, yeah, but I've really been enjoying that, and I don't think because I know a lot of people were starting like home gardens because they were worried about like food security and food shortages because of
Yeah.
COVID. That's not why I started mine because
Me,
I
me
don't.
either.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of space to actually like have a garden to sustain me food wise. Um, but uh, no shame on anyone who like wants to do that. By the way, I just don't have the space and or the patience. So, um, but I started the garden just because I had time. I was home.
I Yeah, I needed something to focus on.
Yeah.
I really, like during the summer solstice, I find like, the summer solstice is great for like passion.
Hmm.
It's a really passion. The summer is a very passionate season. The only problem is right now, I mean, with the pandemic going on and, civil unrest, there is a lot of either passions are being fully expressed or they're being completely, because, you're staying inside. And I really needed something to put my attention into.
Yeah,
And I
and it's
really,
something you've been wanting to do. You've been talking about it
yeah,
for a long time.
yeah, I have. I've been really wanting to start my own like witch's garden. Like I have an amazing at least one. I have a couple not connections, but resources that I know where to get a lot of really great witching herbs. Like I just ordered rue,
Mm-hmm.
ruta gravelens, which is like the traditional rue,
Mm-hmm.
which like removing the evil eye and things like that. I got mugwort, and I actually got St. John's wort, which has a particular connection to the summer solstice. Um,
Yes, it does. It was popping up in all of the readings that
hmm
I was doing.
yeah, which is why I mean, of course, unfortunately, my St. John's wort is too young to. There's no flowers on it, unfortunately. But
What is the significance of it to the
so
solstice?
St. John's wort is probably one of the most potent uh anti-magic or protective herbs that a witch could have in their cupboard. Um, it has a very long history in the craft, and traditionally, like I said, it's a protective herb. Um, it is believed that in older texts, it was said that the devil, although sometimes it was witches who said this themselves, interestingly enough, that the devil could not come within 10 feet of someone who had the St. John's wort plant on their person. And it was
Wow.
very particular. It was like like in feet. It actually talked about in feet.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it was very particular. Darian, my partner, he was like, "That's a little too particular. That's weird." You
Yeah.
know, which I agreed with. But it comes with a story of a English gentlewoman who, I don't know if she made a deal or cast a spell or went to see cunning folk or something along those lines, and basically, in order to get herself, or no, someone made a deal about like for her, like basically she was the whatever the devil wanted,
Mm.
and she went to a cunning folk to protect herself, and the cunning person gave her a flower of St. John's wort
Mm-hmm.
plucked on St. John's Eve, which is June 23rd, which is generally when St. John's Wort is at its peak.
Oh, okay.
But interestingly enough, just kind of a side note on green magic, people also find that this time for that around that time period for St. John's Wort, especially like a more mature plant,
Mhm.
its alkaloids and all of its chemical properties, its medicinal properties, are also at their peak. So I
Ah.
think that is yeah, that's pretty interesting as well. I think to note.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so yeah, it's an incredibly protective plant. Even more so if, like I said, plucked on St. John's Eve. Um, in the show notes below, Jay, remind me to give everyone a folk charm that's said while plucking the plant in order to prune it and it maintain its virtue for use. I do have it in one of my books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. Actually, Byron Ballard posted something on her Facebook asking people if they were finding kind of like refuge in their gardens this year.
Yep. I actually commented on that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Um and I was like, yeah, like this is the first year I've ever had a garden. I've lived in the city my whole life and I've never really had space or time or patience to kind of put into growing things. And I always felt like a bad witch for it, and I still kind of feel like a bad witch because I'm growing vegetables versus herbs. But
It's
that's
still
just
really witchy to grow veggies too.
it's just me beating myself up because that's what I'm best at. But um yeah, I think that's why I feel so in tune with the solstice energy right now is because like I'm actually tending to a garden. I'm actually watching something grow. I've planted something. I will have a harvest. You know what I mean? Like when I harvest my vegetables. And so I never really felt in tune with some of those I guess it'd be called like an agrarian concept of like, you know, like farming and harvesting and things like that. I never had a connection to it because I never farmed, I never harvested, I never planted anything, you know.
Yep.
So now I'm really feeling that, and I'm like, oh, now I understand why people, especially people who are witches who do practice magic, I understand why they at least have something growing at any given moment because it it's an incredible connection
Yeah.
to those energies, and I think that's what's been keeping my energy levels up um as we get closer into well as we go down the path into the hotter and hotter days. Yeah, I think that's just what's been keeping me going. Um, I kind of
Mhm.
wanted to get back into a little bit of some of the like, I guess, history surrounding this particular Sabbath.
Mhm.
Um, so like I've said before in previous episodes, I come from a very Wiccan background. That's kind of where I got started.
Same.
And kind of as a side note, I feel like in older episodes, I feel like I kind of shit on Wicca a lot, and I really don't mean to sound that way. So I think at some point in the future, I would like to do like an episode comparing Wicca versus witchcraft. I think that would be a really interesting episode to see like how they differ, and but also where they intersect. But
Right.
anyway, so like I said, I come from a very Wiccan background, and in Wicca, on the eight spoked wheel of the year, the summer solstice is also known as, and I'm probably gonna butcher it because I never know if it's pronounced Litha or Letha,
I don't even think it matters,
or
to
it
be
doesn't
honest.
matter. Okay, thank
I
God it
don't
doesn't
know.
matter. Um, really, what that follows is the how do I describe it? It's when it's the rise of the Oak King. Am I correct?
You actually would
In
have
Wicca, let me double check.
uh
Pretty sure that's what it. Let me go by here.
see, for me, when I always see, like, I think so much of my knowledge of I mean, the Sabbats overall, I mean, especially like I guess the in between Sabbats or whatever, I kind
Oh,
of
I see what it is.
uh,
Cut you off. What it
no,
is the Oak King falls to the Holly King. So even though, and that's sort of always the darkly beautiful thing I always liked about the kind of like the Wiccan interpretation of the summer solstice
Mm-hmm.
is that even though it is the blazingest, hottest, brightest day of the year, it is also the point in time in which the days begin to shorten, which I always thought was kind of like darkly beautiful in a way.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's the longest day, but also so if the Oak King, which is the king of summer, of light, of vibrance, falls to the Holly King, then the Holly King is the darker half, the dark half of the year. So even though we're like partying it up at the summer solstice, it's like the dark half of the year approaches. It's right there. It's around the corner, and it kind of reminds me of like Game of Thrones, like winter is coming. You know what I mean? There's always this sense in particularly in Wicca that I always felt there was always this sense of like, well, winter is coming. Winter is around the corner. You have to get ready for winter. You have to be able to
Yeah.
survive winter. And of course, like in our modern day society, sometimes that's hard to translate. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
word survival, quote unquote.
We've definitely. I would even argue, even in traditional craft, a lot of it has had to kind of. Although, of course, a lot of traditional craft no longer kind of work with that kind of fertility, earth. Like they don't necessarily do that. They're kind of more interested in the spirit working part of it. But
Right.
even though I am tradcraft, I personally really do love the old pagan holidays.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of living like with the seasonal tides and working with those spirits that are in connect with those seasons. Um, I find it to be incredibly powerful, and I mean this, like I said, this year, 2020 in particular, I'm really now that I kind of found my niche. I think I've had a lot of growing to do, and I found that I work really well with the good neighbors. I work really well with the Fae, and they have a big to do with this time of the year as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of there's a lot of lore about the Queen of Elfame, kind of like walking the land and things like that. Uh, so I connect there, to this time as well. It like it's a very liminal time. We're starting to begin, like you said, the days are growing shorter after,
Yeah.
um, and we start to kind of begin to prepare for the harvest season. You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, and of course, once Lunasa comes, it all pretty much just speeds right by. You know, Mavon often is like a blur, and then it's just all of a sudden it's Samhain.
Yeah. Sometimes Maybon feels like a footnote on the wheel of the year, especially with how like quickly everything moves.
I know that time of the year just like zoom, real fast.
So,
But
why, in your personal practice, why do you still follow, I guess, the Wiccan Wheel of the Year? Because that's kind of where it was established.
yeah, there's something. So whilst I'm not big on fertility, right? Like I don't care so much about like
Making
human
babies.
fertility,
Yeah,
right? Um, because as a queer person, that doesn't mean much to me.
right. Fertility is a
But
sensitive subject to many queer people.
yeah, um, but I do love the idea of like not nature fertility. Like I like Mother Nature.
Right.
I love like watching my pumpkin. I had this time. Like, okay, can I go back to my garden real quick
Yeah,
if you
sure.
allow me? I had a tiny little jack-o'-lantern pumpkin plant.
Uh-huh.
I have been wanting to grow my own jack-o'-lantern since I was a kid, and as is my mom, she just never had the opportunity.
Right.
And we finally are, and this plant has more than tripled in size,
Wow.
and it flowered last night.
Ooh.
There is something so magical to see this orange flower that's going to precursor this beautiful orange pumpkin. that will be my Halloween jack-o'-lantern, you know?
Oh man, I want to grow my own jack-o'-lantern next year. That's a great idea.
And I have so many. Yeah, it's beautiful, Jay. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Take a picture of it.
I did. I'll post it. I posted on Facebook, but I'll post it to the group. I've been wanting to post more of my garden on the group, but anyway, um, there was something about watching all of them grow. You know, like I have a larkspur plant, and I was so afraid of it dying because the flowers started wilting, and then all of a
Ah,
sudden the flowers bloomed all over again for like another couple of days, and now those flowers they died off again. But I'm not as worried because clearly I'm learning the cycle of this plant. Their flowers
yeah,
don't last long. It's
I,
just a blooming plant and then they fall and then it blooms again and then they fall, you know?
yeah, and that's
And
something you would have never noticed or known before unless you started
mhm,
that garden.
right. And it's beautiful. Not only is it beautiful because of just to watch something that I'm putting my time and energy into, but also because like the spirits in those plants, like I'm gearing up to try. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have the best situation in my home right now,
Right.
um, but that hopefully will transition out
Hmm.
in July, and I'll be able to really sit with each one of those plants. And I am fully ready. I've already told them each plant. Yes, I talked to my plants. Um,
You should talk to your. That's just been proven. That's just
I
science.
know. I also play them really peaceful music, and we listen to
Oh,
folk music together, and classical music, and witchy music. We
mm,
have a good time. Um, but the spirit of like, just the spirit of the larkspur,
right.
like it's incredibly protective, and it has this beautiful quality of revealing kind of the truth of the situation. It's not about like a truth spell, right? It's not about like pulling the truth out of someone.
Right.
It's just to aid you in seeing the truth of what's happening before you. The
Hmm.
things that we lie to ourselves about.
Hmm.
And that's I always thought that that was one of its more particularly interesting properties. Um because I feel like that's a great help to me. But what I'm trying to say is working so closely with the spirits of rosemary and lavender and lemongrass and you know St. John's Fort and German chamomile, like I'm picking up on these really powerful green allies and understanding how their life cycle works. You know,
Yeah. Like the other
like
day, I noticed my pepper plant like in the morning, like in the daytime. You know, like
mm-hmm,
when not even really in the morning. I shouldn't say morning because I've been waking up late. So like afternoon, right? Um,
yeah,
I've been getting up at like 11. So by the time I get out there to look at the garden, it's like 2. So like in the afternoon when the sun's, really blazing in front of the house and the pepper plant, the leaves kind of like it looks like it's wilted actually. Like it looks like it's just unhappy. I was like, "Oh no, like is it dying?" And then I noticed as the sun goes down and gets a little cooler, the leaves kind of open back up. Like the plant kind of like folds in on itself and then it kind of
mm-hmm,
opens back up like at dusk, which I
yep,
thought was super cool because I was like, oh, okay, so now I understand like that's what this plant does like during the day. Like this plant like does different things during the cycle of the day, which I thought
right. And you
was
see, that is what I find beautiful.
mm-hmm.
Watching these plants, they have personalities. There's something about them. They're different and they need different things. They have different needs and desires and wants, and they don't all want the same kind of watering. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's something about and to me that says a lot about their virtue, their numen. Their spirit, their innate spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Clearly those spirits, those spirits are kind of in this, much like us, a cycle of life and death and rebirth. For some of them, like
Mm-hmm.
there's annuals, right?
Yeah,
And then there's perennials.
that's true.
I don't know. I just think that that's why I stick to the wheel of the year, because nature is sacred to me.
Mm.
I come from, there's a big conversation right now in the occult community about like the model, like the magical model that people follow. You know, we have people who follow the purely energy model,
Right.
and then people who follow the spirit model. And while I follow a bit of both, like most people do, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm largely like predominantly informed by the spirit model. And the energy model is just like it's like a support thing, you know what I mean? Like it's there obviously, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not yeah. So
I've kind of
yeah.
realized that in my, because I also utilize the Wheel of the Year in my personal practice. And I think maybe some of it just derives from comfort in the familiar. You know, it's the first thing that I picked up on, and it's the first thing that I really got attached to. So why not keep doing it, right? And it makes me happy, so why not? But
Mhm.
I really like holidays. I really like the concept of holidays or power days or holy days, however, which way you want to phrase it. But
Mhm.
I like celebratory days in which you can set aside a block of time that day or that weekend or whatever it is
What
that you're planning, and you can get together with people and celebrate. And
yeah.
that is what I'm looking forward to the most, especially like with some restrictions with COVID being lifted, even though whether they should be lifted, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have to go
That's a
there if
whole
we don't.
other discussion. But the
Uh,
idea is that we can slowly start to gather with our at least our close friends, and
yeah.
then slowly widen your social circle. I guess that's the idea behind it. But
Mhm.
I'm looking forward to that. I enjoy ritual with other people so much, and it doesn't always have to be the most extravagant of rituals. Just being with people and hanging out and feeling their energy and
Mhm.
having your energy mixed with theirs. It's so great. So that's why I kind of follow the Wiccan Will of the Year for also for a sense of a little bit of structure because it kind of kicks me in the ass a little bit because it's like, hey, there's a Sabbath coming up, you need to prepare for it, and sometimes I can get a little
Mhm.
lax in my practice, and then I look at the calendar and I go, oh, you're right, that is coming up. I should really like prepare something,
Yeah.
which I don't really view the same as like, I don't know, like the concept of like fair weather Christians, like you only go to church on Christmas and Easter or something.
Yeah.
um I don't feel like a fair weather witch because of that. It's
No,
because I actually like prepare something. You know what I mean? I'm not just like, oh yeah, let me read the thing that I read every year for this. You know what I mean? Like it's not flippant and it's not casual. Even if
yeah.
it is small and low energy, it's still always very like sacred.
Right. I was
Whatever
just
it
the same
is.
word I was just about to use too.
Yeah, it's a very sacred moment. Now, I don't really believe in the I guess like the lore behind a lot of them, like the oak and the holly king. Like it's a very good story. It's a very good imagery. It's very good metaphor.
Right.
And that's kind of what I use it for. Is like for those sort of like metaphorical experiences
Of course.
and the symbolism. Um, but there are a good number of witches who I don't want to say like don't they don't. It's not that they don't celebrate Litha or Letha or Midsummer. It just is what it is. Like I know Chris and Tara were saying in there. There's really only two nights or 2 days in particular that are power days for them. It was Hexennacht
Mhm.
and Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I understand that. I mean, don't get me wrong, like Hexenoct and is like crazy powerful. It's super intense, and I can't wait to kind of celebrate that, preferably with you,
yeah.
um, and preferably kind of learning to travel. If spirit flight, hedge crossing,
Mm-hmm.
that would be my preference. because I never really got super into it. Well, I've talked about it briefly, my one experience, and then after that, I just kind of did other things, but
Mm-hmm.
spell work and stuff. But I really do, like you. I really enjoy the community of the pagan holidays. Also, too, I like the one thing that needs to be, I think, said is that the construct of the eight spoked wheel is particularly Wiccan, but the holidays themselves
Or
have
not, yeah.
like there's a lot of information about what was done pre-Wicca, right?
Yeah, yeah. It
So like
drives from that lore and mythology.
right, like Letha, for instance, from my understanding, is more of a Nordic word. It's or based from more, it
Actually,
was
I think
something that was,
it's Roman. It's Roman
oh, is it
for
Roman?
something. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I don't know, but I know it necessarily wasn't Celtic, right? Um, these festivals, not all pagans celebrated. Some of the, obviously they had some, especially like in the Celtic tribes and the Nordic tribes, they would have some similar festivals. But like some of the festivals weren't celebrated by every tribe or of people in the British Isles. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, that wasn't necessarily as homogenized like that, but now it is. And I mean, as long as I'm celebrating it for me, as long as I'm celebrating it more closer to history and less kind of uh you know overly
Like the
symbolized,
Wiccan lore.
yeah, which
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with. If you do that,
Yeah, it's just
that's your
not
thing.
your flavor.
If it's powerful for you, that's great. It's just not as powerful for me. But using kind of the traditional lore, that's kind of where I find my seat of power. You know what I mean? That's how I can really connect to these really powerful days. You know, but another thing too is that this idea of power days, days that seem to be particularly more liminal than others, it stretches cultures for thousands of years.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's nothing new. That's for sure.
mm-mm. Yeah. So I guess for me, that too. Like there are times, like certain holidays and festivals, where like I wake up and I'm just like, whoo, like it's in the
Mhm.
air. You know. Um, and then there are certain days where I'm just like, huh.
Yeah. Cuz
It
trust
just feels
me,
like,
like there have been plenty of Sabbats that have come and gone that I have not I've been sick or I've just been depressed or I've just been not feeling like the spirit of the Sabbat.
mm,
And that's okay too. Like you don't have to push yourself. Like I think I kind of get a little bit of that. Well, you must celebrate your holidays no matter what, because it kind of comes from
uh,
my upbringing. Like I don't care if you got the flu, you're still going to grandma's for Christmas. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how it's been. Um, and holidays were kind of like I don't care if you're not in the mood. You have to get together with your family and do this thing and celebrate and be happy. And I don't um I don't carry that same sentiment into observing the Sabbats. I observe them if I feel like I always do some sort of acknowledgement, no matter how I feel, but it may not necessarily be a full ritual.
yeah. Well, also too, I don't know if we were just saying this in personal conversation or if we said this on an episode, but I really, really, really only like celebrating the Sabbats with other witches.
I know, me too. Especially the
Uh,
Sabbats, like personal rituals and personal spell work. That's totally different.
yeah.
But with the Sabbats, it's just it not to knock on anyone who's solitary by choice by choice or just by location. But I just feel like they're designed to be celebrated with people.
Communal, yeah.
Yeah. Like I
Which
think
is really funny because when I first started, I was completely solitary.
me too. I was
I,
so
I,
alone.
but and for a long time I didn't want to for like I didn't want anybody to. I didn't want that structure. I didn't want like that coven thing. And then me and you finally did it, and I was like, okay, this is
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the little bit that we did with the coven, and I fully plan on obviously, getting that back and, you know, putting more life into that. But
hmm
I just I feel like I want to talk about the Sabbaths like extra because I can't celebrate them with people right now. You know what I mean? And so I want to like talk about them with someone else at the very least. And yeah, like we could do like a virtual ritual or something like that, but
Mhm.
it's not the same for me, especially with
Yeah.
celebrating the Sabbaths. For spell work, sure, you know, that's just as effective, but for that communal celebrate, like the communal celebratory feeling
Hmm.
doesn't translate for me. Another thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is the queer wheel of the year, which is something that I came across in a book called Queer Magic: Power Beyond Boundaries.
Mm.
It's edited by Lee Harrington and Fenix Kulystin. I hope I'm saying that correctly. So this book is like a collection of essays by queer people or queer witches, and they write about a whole bunch of different topics. And right here, what I have is The Queer Journey of the Wheel by Steve Kenson. And basically, this was just a take on the eight Sabbaths and how they relate to, um, I guess, the life cycle of a queer person. And so Midsummer is actually Pride, which is very
Mhm.
fitting because it's Pride Month.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and it really makes sense that Midsummer is also a time of pride because for queer people, I feel like it's when all of our pride parades are. So that's the first thing. You know, it's Pride Month. It's when most of our pride celebrations are. It's usually in the summer.
Hmm.
Um, because pride is about, this is what Steve writes in this little passage here. He says, "Pride is about shining a brilliant light, not a spotlight on us, but a light that shines out and illuminates, a beacon that others can see to guide them to the better spaces and ideas that we create." And I thought that was really powerful to hear, especially because I feel like with the cancellation of all of our pride events and things like that, um, I feel like we're kind of radiating that same energy just in smaller pockets. So instead of
Yeah.
having this large parade, I've been seeing it um like on social media, just like little pockets of just like, you know, we are the queer community, we are here. And especially with the decision passed today by the Supreme Court, that feels particularly, you know, important to talk about, especially close to Midsummer and Pride.
Mhm.
The fact that, you can't, what is it, you can't be fired, can't lose a job, can't be fired for being
Being
LGBT.
LGBTQ.
And
Mhm.
that's on a federal level, and that's crazy because for the longest time it was just a state by state kind of basis, but now you're just protected across the board. And I know,
Yeah.
and I have also seen some other arguments pop up that, oh, they only passed this, just to distract us from XYZ. And I'm like, you know what, you're probably right, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that they passed it.
Right.
Um,
It's even I was kind of like, that's probably true,
yeah,
but like take a win. Like
yeah,
this is a win regardless. It can't go anywhere. Like
yeah,
it's there now.
mm-hmm,
That's the rule of the land, and so it is written.
exactly. And I thought that was it was just really, it was that little ray of light, the little, feeling of hope with all this uncertainty and unrest. And it just felt really good. It just felt really really good to hear that. And
Good.
what did he write in here? There was another thing that he said in here that I really liked. Oh right. So it was about Stonewall.
Mm.
The little piece he wrote about Stonewall. So this is what he writes. He goes, "The patrons of the Stonewall Inn did not act initially from a higher vision. They had simply had enough. Enough of
Mhm.
harassment, enough of persecution, enough of shame, enough of mistreatment. They fought back, and the community put the power of that pride behind better visions of the future, a better world for themselves and those who would follow them. They marched for their recognition and their rights and helped to earn them, passing the torch on to the generations after them, to us, to continue the work. Um, and that feels particularly, pertinent too because of the Black Lives Matter, protests and different, I guess, I hate calling them riots, but I guess they are
I
riots.
personally just keep calling them protests.
Protests,
And if
yeah.
anybody wants to contradict me, they're free to, but I don't listen.
I feel like they start as protests and then they kind of, for multiple reasons, kind of devolve into riots. I guess maybe that's the more accurate way of saying it.
I suppose. Although,
Yeah.
of course, I always just see it as secretly a bunch of white supremacists infiltrating them,
Oh,
whatever. And
that's what I mean. That's what I mean by a series
yeah,
of, for a
I just
multitude
like
of
you,
different reasons.
I'm being sassy. I'm being saucy, not at you. That's the situation. I know what you meant.
But yeah, so yeah, so um when people were saying, especially when people were complaining about, oh, they're rioting, they're looting. Well, Stonewall was a riot. Stonewall was, it was crazy. Um and it's important to carry the spirit of that because when I was a teenager, I always was very, it's like, oh, gay pride. I'm proud to be gay. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, well, it means that I'm gay and I have to tell you all about it. And I think maybe as a teenager, that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
So I had my rainbow bracelets and my rainbow fucking everything. And I was very open about the fact that I was gay and this and that. And
Hmm.
now I think I'm a little more toned down, not because I'm scared, um, not because of anything like that. I don't feel the need to show it as much because I just feel it innately and I know what it is and I feel confident in my queerness. I guess that might be the
Hmm.
right way to put it.
I will say I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, absolutely. I feel like that, whatever that was when I was a teenager, is definitely kind of subdued,
Mhm.
you know? Not out of fear or anything like that. But I will also say at the same time, I have felt, you know, over increasingly due to the unrest here in the United States, that I have been feeling this kind of like I don't want to say it's necessarily reigniting
Mhm.
because I think that was like a teenager version, you know what I mean?
Right.
But if that could reignite inside of a, almost 29-year-old person,
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I feel that exactly kind of what you're saying. Like, it's almost like you feel more queer now. And yet, like, inside me, I feel more queer than I've ever felt, right?
yeah.
But I don't feel the need to shout it at the top of my lungs because I
But I
think,
would.
but I would, exactly. It's like, I would, but I don't need to.
Right, like I feel like if someone put me in a space where I had no choice, like
Mm-hmm.
to put it like this, if goodness forbid, but if something like Stonewall ever had to happen again,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be afraid. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I could find that again. It just would be it's different now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Um, Kind of like there was some talk the past couple days about Trump trying to reverse gay marriage, the ruling on gay marriage.
Mhm.
I just don't. Once the Supreme Court rules something, it's very hard to turn it over. Like it's extremely fucking
I
hard.
think I think realistically people were misunderstanding cuz even I was like, well, I was like it's a scary notion, not
Right.
because I think he could do it. I think like the article that I was reading, they actually well, they titled it really well.
Hmm.
They were like he basically saying he's going to stay running with the same whatever I forget what it's called, but like like the kind of ideology that they run with,
Yeah.
during their election. He's going to stick with that, which included, kind of overturning same-sex marriage. So I mean, but it's no different than when he ran in 2016. He's homophobic, transphobic, racist, bigoted piece of shit.
Right.
But
Like it's no surprise at this point. Like I
right.
wasn't.
So I mean, like, it is disturbing because that just means that, there's going to be more, I mean, as if it doesn't already happen, but there are tons of gay families that are harassed,
Mhm.
and, people make snide remarks, when they're walking by, or people think that, they have the right to comment on their family and tell them, oh, don't you think that they need a mom because family, blah, blah,
Right.
like, and then that already happens.
Yeah,
So for me,
it's
it
kind of
was
like
never
I feel like I can hold my own space as a queer person. Like I don't have to. And it's the thing of like if someone was needling, like suppose like I never explicitly said like in the workplace, right, that I was trans. I never
mhm,
said it explicitly. I don't hide it either. That's the thing. It's like just cuz I'm not going to go around and introduce myself to every person and say, "Hi, I'm Jay and I'm trans." No.
right.
I'm not going to do that because none of your business, quite frankly.
Mhm.
And but if someone was like lording it over my head, like I know what you are, I'm
Yeah.
gonna out you to the company, I would be like, oh no, no worries there, bud, because I can do it myself. Oh hey everyone, I'm transgender.
Mm,
What's up? you know,
yeah.
um, and I feel like you would be like the same. To be like, yeah, I'm gay, and y'all didn't see that like a mile away. Like, what's up?
I mean, it's so funny because, like, I mean, it's so funny that you're mentioning that. Like, talking about how very queer I feel.
mm-hmm.
Um, my friend Eileen, she recently got like this really nice um manicure kit,
Mm.
like, for, like, painting and like doing the nails and stuff. And I was like, hey, I was like, would you give me really nice nails when all this is over? And
Yeah,
my mom is fully aware. Like, I tell her all the time, I'm like, I don't do the gender thing. It never made sense. Like,
yeah.
and she just like, she doesn't react badly. She just kind of, it's almost as if she already knew. It's weird.
Maybe, or maybe she's just given up, like trying to understand. She's just like, okay, maybe.
Probably it, because, like, I tell her, like, the things that I want to wear, like the kind of the fashion that I kind of want to get into, and
Hmm.
how, like, and I tell her, like, I'm like, I really can't wait to be more femmy, when my dad leaves, like.
Mm, exactly. Oh yeah, 'cause she can't be doing that with him there. He'll
I mean,
never
I could
leave
probably
you
do the
alone.
nails thing, but,
Yeah.
like, if I come down with, like, a shawl coat, and that, and, like, my
Hmm.
makeup done and shit like that, I think then things will implode.
Yeah,
Um,
he would have things to say, and it's not that you care what he thinks. You just
Not
don't
at
want to
all.
fucking hear it. That's what it comes down to.
Exactly. I'm just not interested in the argument.
Hmm.
Exactly. I don't give a damn what he says about it.
Hmm.
Like, I'm confident in the fact that, I have these experiences. This is what I want. Like, I'm fine with all of it. All of it, just like, it's just like, okay, whatever.
I think it's that you're in such close quarters because he's living with you temporarily. But it would be different, like if you passed him on the street, expressing yourself how you wish, and he had something to fucking say. Well, it's like, well, then don't look at me then.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, keep it
Right.
pushing. See you later.
Mhm. And, like, the cool thing is like, I have a partner who's like kind of going through their own realizations, and, like, really wanting to fem it up, which they already did before they met me. Um
Yeah,
and, like, the thing is, like, Darian was already doing makeup.
yeah. Because I remember a while ago, the what was it? The whatever the last Pride event was that we went to. What do they do?
The eyeliner, yeah,
Eyeliner,
eyeshadow.
eyeshadow. Yeah.
He was already doing makeup before he met me. And I used to ask him, like, you didn't stop doing makeup because you thought I wouldn't be interested, right? Like, and he says no, which I hope not.
Hmm.
Um, he would just say something to protect my feelings, because unfortunately he's like that. But uh yeah, and now that I'm kind of like I want to like now that I'm like I want to learn how to do makeup, and like yeah, I want to look, I want to be more femme.
It's funny that
And
you mention makeup and femininity because I think that isn't this the summer solstice also like a really good time for glamour magic? Or am I
hmm
confusing that with another Sabbath?
I think that is the summer solstice, isn't it? I forget. It
I'm
might be
pretty sure
Beltane.
it might be Beltane. I mean, really, the time period in between Beltane and Midsummer. I always associated glamour magic with warmer weather, with like solar energy. Anyway,
Yeah, I yeah.
or like, or even fire, because it's like a transformation kind of thing. It's like you're transforming yourself in a
To
way.
be, I mean, to be even more, I'm probably much of our audience probably would agree with this. I don't even know if you will, but
Mm,
personally, the energy that I feel on Beltane and Midsummer are
mm.
very similar.
Same, because it's almost as hot on both days now.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, even on a metaphysical level,
hmm
like there is this sense of strange liminality. Like I love Beltane and Midsummer at dusk
Yes,
when just
that's
when the
my favorite
sun, like when the
time.
darkness is starting to set and the sun is up at the same time.
Uh huh.
There is something for like on and I mean in particular on these two particular days.
hmm
There is something so powerful in that moment of dusk between night and day.
It's like tangible.
Yeah. Like you feel like I mean it's to the point to where like I actually get the heebie-jeebies walking around at dusk during Beltane evening
hmm
and Midsummer evening. Like you know that the spirit world is like moving all around you,
hmm
like in mass, you know?
And it's almost like it's not so much even the spirit world. It's like for me, it's like I know that other witches are also doing workings right now, or an hour before, or an hour from now. But the idea is like it, a witch doesn't have to be working their spell in that exact moment, but it's just knowing that that energy is brewing. It's coming, it's going, it's rising and falling. It's like
Mhm.
it's literally like a bubbling cauldron for me. It's like, some like a bubbling cauldron, like it takes a while to get to a simmer, and then you bring it up to a boil, and then you bring it back down, and so it doesn't overboil, and it just that's kind of what it reminds me of. It just this ebb and flow of incredible energy, which is very different energy from say like Samhain and Yule, Mabon. Um, it's very different, but I think I'm more in tune with those energies this year. I've actually like, and I am the most fair skinned person, like, not on the planet, but I'm pretty fair skinned. Like I'm out in the sun for like 10 minutes and I get a nice toasting. Um, but I've been enjoying feeling the sun on my skin, and that rarely happens for me because normally I'm like,
Ooh,
ow, it burns.
yeah, I'm normally burning in 2 seconds,
hmm
but I have been spending so much of my summer now. I mean, not a ridiculous amount of time, obviously, because
hmm
social distancing, but like I had, the couple of times that I went to the plant nurseries, to get plants and stuff for my garden. I'm out in the sun because you have to wait, in line,
hmm
and I didn't get burnt. I haven't gotten burnt all like which is crazy because the sun has been on certain days it's been super hot and super bright.
hmm
Um, the most I've gotten burned was on my forearms while I was doing garden work,
mm
and I just clipped a little bit of my aloe. I have an aloe plant,
mm.
and I put that on my arms, and it healed like the next day. It was, and it was yeah. I'm
Also,
just
that
happy.
idea of like you're out in your garden, you got sunburned by working out in your garden, and then you used a plant from your garden to to
Oh
fix
yeah, I know.
yourself.
Yep, exactly.
You're like,
And
haha.
that's what I wanted. I wanted a really practical garden for me,
hmm
But
That's why I
when
went with vegetables at first because I was like, well, vegetables are pretty practical. Like, you can eat them, and if they taste good, well, that's a good idea. I might do
I,
herbs next year.
I'm doing veggies next year
Are you
in the
really?
in the clawfoot tub.
Oh, okay.
That's gonna be our veggie garden. But I'm also gonna be doing like potatoes. Um, Yeah, I want to be growing potatoes. I know that, but then we're going to be growing. My mom had a couple of veggies she wants to grow, because I'm also trying to like cut down on my mom's costs, like when she goes to the supermarket,
Yeah,
because she always has to buy greens and stuff, but all of that gets expensive over time. So if there's anything that I can, preserve or pickle or whatever,
yeah. That's always my thing is like, okay, so you have a plant and then the fruit of it, like the tomatoes are ripe and you pick them and then it's like you gotta grow a whole new tomato. you know?
Right.
It's just fascinating to me how consumer culture is, like how fast we consume. Like how it's amazing like how long it takes to grow that tomato versus how long it takes to eat the tomato. You know? It's
Yeah.
just the amount of work that you put in for what you get out of it is kind of incredible, and I'm like, why the fuck don't farmers make more money? Like I just don't get it. And why is it all controlled by the government? And then I start getting really tinfoily and I start getting a little out of line there. But um
I mean, I don't know how tinfoil that is. There's a lot of stuff that goes. I mean, it shows you how over controlled, as far as like how we mistreat
right,
where
like
our food source
I
comes
just
from.
don't understand how the government can regulate like farming. Like how do you regulate the growing of food, but not regulate in a good way, like regulate in a bad way as in like basically force farmers to be like almost like an indentured servitude in a way because of
It
how
is, yeah.
much they make versus like they don't really make anything. They don't really turn a profit.
I yeah. But I've been saying that about like all sorts of laws that they make on plants. You know,
Yeah,
like uh um uh, weed, cannabis. I
yeah,
forget which
marijuana,
one is marijuana. No, don't say it's cannabis. Yeah,
cannabis.
I think that's the one you say. One of them is based in racism, and I forget.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I'll have to remember. But cannabis. What you call it? I never understood how they made so many laws against a plant that
I
has
know.
so blatantly, especially now with so many medicinal benefits. Um, it's incredibly anti-cancer. Um, certain strains help people with mental health problems.
Mhm.
Certain strains help people with chronic pain. I mean, we've been giving lupus patients, medical marijuana for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and we've put these weird laws. I just don't understand how they can, like,
Police a plant.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just sounds so wrong.
Oh yeah.
Like,
But trust me, even when I get on the concept of like owning land, I'm like, okay, like owning land. I mean I get what you're saying, but also like no one really owns land because, nature can come and retake your land at any moment,
that is true. It
you
is
know.
very true. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
We're just renting it. We think we own things, but we're really just renting space here.
Well, I mean, but that's like when people are like, like, Mother Nature hates us or whatever, and I'm kind of like, I personally, she probably doesn't give a damn because if we all disappeared, if she killed us all off,
She's still
you
keep
know,
going.
she'd be fine.
Yeah, I never liked that concept of like Mother Nature being like this hateful, spiteful being. I also really didn't like the concept of Mother Nature just being like a loving, caring being. I kind of
Yeah,
like the concept of Mother Nature as just an ambivalent force that does what it wants,
that's
when it
exactly what
wants.
yeah, that's how I see that power, that virtue. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the closest thing to God we'll have on this planet. You know what I mean? It's the closest thing
Mhm.
to God you will see in a physical manifestation, I guess you could say.
I agree completely with that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
On that note, worship Mother Nature. God damn it!
Hug more trees.
Yes, hug more trees. But yeah, I mean, we kind of talked for an hour on this. This is just a little special episode just for the solstice, for summer solstice. If you are celebrating it, I would love to hear about how you're doing it. Maybe
Mhm.
send us some pictures of an altar or just a space. that
Or
you
if you're doing like food, like if you're making like
mm,
a midsummer sort of dinner or something,
or
I
like
don't mind.
paintings or writings or just anything within the spirit of the season. Like we would definitely want to see that, and I'll share what I end up doing. And I actually have some pictures of my garden that I have to put up.
I'll
Actually, I've
share.
been taking pictures of my garden at dusk because that's when I love it the most because I have these little solar lights in it,
Uh,
and it just looks so good.
I have to. I'll take more pictures of my garden at night. We have like this beautiful. We have these fairy lights set up, but they're like behind this beautiful ivory, waterproof sheer. And then on the other side, we have these really cool, battery operated. They look like just like light bulbs hanging.
Hmm.
Like it's really cool. And they're just like little ambient lights. But yeah, it's so nice. But I will take a picture of my St. John's wort on the because by then it'll be planted.
Hmm.
So I'll take a picture if it has grown. I'll still take a picture regardless for midsummer.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, this is just our little kind of talk on this. I'll do my uh little ending spiel here, and then you can all get on with your midsummer rituals. So, for anyone who may be new to us, we are on the big three social medias: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our handle is Witches Betwixt, all one word on all three platforms. We all check each one except Twitter, which is pretty much run by me. But feel free to message us on any of them, and we will get back to you. If you want to add your post to our online community, you can use the hashtag WBTWXT. And the links to our official Facebook group, Discord server, and website are in the show notes below, as well as a folk charm for St. John's wort that you were supposed to say while you were plucking the plant. That's going to be in the show notes as well. And Scott
I
is going
will.
to send that to me just after we get off the recording here.
Yep.
And then I think I referenced Kristen Tara's book, Besom, Stang, and Sword, and as well as Queer Magic. And so I will put links and information for those in there as well. All right. So, for now, we hope you all have a great solstice, and please send us your pictures. We want to see what you all are doing for celebrating. Have a good solstice, and we'll see you later.